So we went with Polemarchus to his house. There we found his brothers, Lysias and Euthydemus, along with Thrasymachus from Chalcedon, Charmantides from Paeania, and Cleitophon, son of Aristonomus. Also there was Polemarchus's father, Cephalus, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, and he seemed to me much older now. He was sitting on a cushioned chair, wearing a garland on his head. He had just finished offering a sacrifice in the courtyard. Other chairs had been set up in a half circle, and we sat down beside him. When he saw us, he greeted us warmly and said, "Socrates, you don't come visit as often as you should. If I were still able to go into the city, I wouldn't ask you to come here, but I can barely make the trip any more, so you ought to come down to the Piraeus more often. Let me tell you something. The more the pleasures of the body fade, the more I enjoy good conversation. So don't turn me down. Make our home yours, and spend time with these young men. We're old friends, and you'll feel right at home with us." The journey to the house of Polemarchus is not trivial. Philosophy in the Republic begins not in a classroom, but in a friend's home. In Christian thought, wisdom is not only public, but domestic, not only found in lecture halls, but cultivated in the home. As Proverbs says, wisdom has built her house. Proverbs 9:1, emphasizing the private seclusion of wisdom that invites home all those who wish to enter. Socrates is being brought into a place of hospitality and sacrifice, showcasing wise conversations begin in the home, amongst friends. There we found his brothers Lysias and Euthydemus, and with them Thrasymachus, Charmantides, and Cleitophon. These names may seem like filler, but they matter. The presence of many voices signals that truth will be examined in community with others. Truth is never pursued alone. The Desert Fathers often insisted that the man who has himself as spiritual director is guided by a fool. Saint Irenaeus likewise said, "Where the church is, there is the Spirit of God, and where the Spirit of God is, there is the church and all grace." That this dialogue takes place among many suggests that wise discernment requires company. The father, Cephalus, becomes our first serious speaker in the dialogue. His old age is not simply a detail. It's the whole reason Socrates begins the conversation. He is a living testimony of a full life. Just as the elderly Simeon in Luke's Gospel rejoices to see the Christ child, Cephalus rejoices to see Socrates, a man of wisdom, who he had once visited often. Old age is honored not for its frailty, but for its insight. Gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. Proverbs 16:31. Yet even in his old age, Cephalus is humble and comes to his younger friend Socrates for wise conversation. In many ways, Cephalus is not idle, nor is he proud. He has offered sacrifice, an act of piety and reverence for the divine. The garland he wears shows he takes part in the old religious customs. Socrates meets him not as a passive elder, but as a man deep in worship. The old man who worships becomes the model of endurance that St. Paul urges, that through such perseverance there is the building of character and hope. Romans 5:4. St. Cyprian wrote, "They who in the fear of God have grown old in righteousness are a crown of glory in the church." Cephalus's greatest desire is for meaningful conversation. He doesn't ask for entertainment or comfort. He wants dialogue with the wise. He's a man who recognizes that the hunger for truth is stronger in old age. Psalm 92 says, "They still bear fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green. Cephalus represents this fruitfulness. And when Cephalus speaks, if I were still able to go and see you, I would not ask you to come to me. Here again, Cephalus shows his humility. He recognizes his limits. His body has aged, but his soul still seeks the good. This humility is the soil in which wisdom can grow. St. Gregory the Great taught, the first step of humility is to bear in mind always the fear of God. Cephalus honors both divine things and wise companions. The man who can no longer move far physically still invites others to draw near to him spiritually. Even in his old age, Cephalus does not isolate himself in bitterness. He opens his home and his heart. This reflects the Christian call to community in every stage of life. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Hebrews 13:2. Cephalus says that as bodily pleasures decline, spiritual or intellectual ones grow. This parallels the wisdom of the saints. St. John Chrysostom said, "He who is not attached to the pleasures of this life gains the peace of the next." The Church Fathers often viewed age as a time of purification. The fire of youth fades, leaving the clarity of deep contemplation.